everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the fall campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. Last week, Return to Curtain Call yielded 4 experience for the ladies, which we spent on some uncustomizable cards for them. Now we're on to the second scenario, Return to the Last King. With that, let's set the scene.
Scenario 2, The Last King. If anyone has answers to the questions that burn in your mind, it's the cast and crew of the King in Yellow. With no other leads to pursue, you put on your best clothes and head to 1452 Atlantic Avenue, where a woman named Constance Dumaine is hosting an event in celebration of the play's one-night engagement in Arkham.
So, of course, we need to put on our best to go socialize with the crew of the King in Yellow. So, next up, let's remind everyone what the tarot rating was. On the good side, we left the Hierophant 5, which means during the first will test each investigator performs each round, they get +1 will. On the bad side, we flipped the Empress 3. During the first agility test each investigator performs each round, they get -1 agility. Next up, we'll take a look at our starting hands. Jacqueline will once more be our lead investigator for this scenario, so she will start off in her hand with an Enchanted Bow level 2, which I'm not completely happy to see. 3 costs to play, will and agility on commit. Uses 3 charges. As an action, we can exhaust it to fight using either will or agility instead of combat and get +1 skill value. The attack deals +1 damage. As an additional cost to initiate this ability, you may spend a charge to have this attack target a non-elite enemy at a connecting location. If you do, ignore aloof and retaliate for the attack. Then we have 2 copies of Storm of Spirits level 3. Yep. 3 costs to play, will, 2 combat on commit. Fight using will instead of combat, +2 will for the attack. If you succeed, instead of standard damage, deal 3 damage to every enemy at your location. If anything additional is dealt to the attacked enemy. But if you pull a symbol, a bad symbol, deal 2 damage to each investigator at the location. Then we have a copy of Occult Theory level 1. While it's in your hand or committed to a skill test, gains will icons equal to your lore and lore equal to your will. And Spectral Razor, 2 costs to play, will, combat on commit, fight plus will for the attack. Immediately before the attack, you may engage the attacked enemy. The attack deals +1 damage, +2 instead if the enemy is non-elite. Mandy's hand consists of her buddy Dr. Milan Christopher, Professor of Entomology. 4 costs to play, lore on commit. +1 lore, and as a reaction after you successfully investigate, gain a resource. Then we have Burning the Midnight Oil, 0 cost to play, lore and agility on commit. Investigate. When the action begins, gain 2 resources. Hiking Boots, 2 costs to play, agility on commit. Limit 1 footwear per investigator, +1 agility. And after the last clue is discovered from your location, exhaust it to move to a connecting location with at least 1 clue or to a connecting unrevealed location. Pathfinder level 1, 3 costs to play, agility on commit. As a fast action during your turn, if you're not engaged with any enemies, exhaust Pathfinder to move to a connecting location. And Pantalone. Limit 1 mask in play. After it enters play, draw 2 cards. And as a reaction, when you initiate a non-lore test, discard Pantalone to use lore for this test instead of the skill indicated. Then we'll take a look at our Act and Agenda decks. Our first agenda. Better never than late. As you pull up to the manor, you notice that something is wrong. A trail of blood leads up the porch steps, and the front door is smashed. Muted music comes from within the house. Its warped and discordant notes painful to your ears. Has the madness of the King in Yellow already made its way here? 3 doomed to advance. Then we have our only act, Discovering the Truth. This isn't a party. It's a madhouse, but for some reason, the guests are too deluded to notice. Very few of them insane, and many are themselves horrors to your eyes. Perhaps you can talk to them to learn more about the King in Yellow. Forced, when an investigator is eliminated, whether by defeat or resignation, place each of that investigator's clues on this act instead of placing them at his or her location. Objective, find as many clues as you can, then get out of this awful place. That sounds like a good plan to me, like I barely even want to be here from the sounds of it. But last up, let's move Mandy and Jacqueline over to the map and go with them. We've got each of our party guests scattered out here. We'll introduce each one of them as they become relevant, aka we move into their location. But let's start off with the foyer where Mandy and Jacqueline are starting. The entrance hall is lavishly decorated, displaying the wealth of the manor's owners while still creating a welcoming atmosphere. "Shall I take your coat?" the doorman asks as you enter. It takes a moment before you realize the doorman has only bloody stumps where he should have hands. Oh, fantastic. Flips into Shroud of two clues. As an action, resign. Having found valuable information about the production, you depart and plan your next move. If each undefeated investigator has resigned, proceed to if no resolution was reached in the campaign guide. We'll get the 2 clues out for that, which are right here. That should be everything set up for the scenario at this point. Like I said, we'll go through everything as it becomes relevant by our investigators moving into those locations. But let's go ahead and get this scenario started. Jacqueline's first turn will keep us right here at the map. Before Jacqueline starts her turn, we'll exhaust ancestral knowledge to draw a skill from under that from Mandy. So Mandy will draw Deduction level 2. 2 lore on commit. If you're successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location, 2 additional clues instead if you succeed by 2 or more. That might be tempting to use right away, but I think we're going to move Jacqueline for action 1 up to the ballroom where we see Constance Dumaine, but we'll come back to her. The distorted music grows louder as you approach the ballroom. Inside, many of the guests are dancing, eating, and enjoying themselves. This flips into the ballroom, Shroud of 4, no clues. After you perform a parlay action in the ballroom, gain 2 resources. Group limit once per phase. Narrow yellow eyes watch the dancers hungrily from the darkness outside. When you try to warn the other guests, they smile politely, comment about wild animal sightings around Arkham, and go back to dancing. Oh, joy. Now let's meet Constance Dumaine. Sociable host. As an action, we can parlay to test lore 3 to ask Constance about the play. If you succeed, take control of 1 of the clues on Constance Dumaine. Forced. When the last clue is removed from Constance, flip this card over and resolve its text. Can I offer you a glass of champagne? I'm not sure I want anything to do with the drinks any of these people have at this party. But there's no help for that right now. Action 2 will be to parlay with Constance, and I'll commit occult theory, which will give me 5 lore. So that'll bring me up to 8. To 3, I'm up 5, and like an idiot, I forgot to put the bag together, so let me get that real quick. The bag is kind of moderately important, no? Silly me. Usually I do all this last night, and I just happened to overlook it. So, as I was saying, Jacqueline is up 5 on this parlay. A -2 gets her 1 of the clues on Constance, and it'll give her 2 resources. So we've done that for the round. I'll grab another one of these exhaustion tokens just to mark that we have done it. Then action 3, I'll parlay. Since I'm at even, I'll put Jacqueline's ability behind this as well. 1, 2, 3. Token 1 we find a -1. Token 2 a -2 and a 0. So we'll cancel the -1 and the -2, reveal the 0, and Jacqueline will get another clue off of Constance. So that will do it for Jacqueline. Mandy's turn. We're going to stay right here. I think, how do we want to do this? I think we're going to spend 4 resources right away for action 1 to play out her buddy Milan. Now we'll go through the flavor text on that. While I truly pray that this nightmare is just a singular abomination, I must admit that I am exhilarated by the possibility that this is but one specimen of a new genus. 1 health, 2 sanity on soak. We had flavor text on the occult theory as well, so we'll take a look at that. Where knowledge is lacking, belief must suffice. Right, action 2 will be to burn some midnight oil. It's probably a waste to do this here, but we'll gain 2 resources when the action begins, and I'll commit deduction to try to get both clues in one shot. So Mandy is up by, let's see, 6, 8. She's up 6 trying to get both clues. Which that is a -1, so that'll get Mandy both clues. Along with the resource, thanks to her buddy Milan. Then action 3, she'll spend the 3 resources that she gained from that to play Pathfinder. Searchers after horror haunt strange, far places. H.P. Lovecraft, The Picture in the House. And then since it's still technically her turn, even though she's out of actions, I will exhaust Pathfinder to move her up to the courtyard, where it might be hard with the glare, but Sebastian Moreau's here. We'll meet him in a second. So the courtyard. Looking out one of the windows, you spy the courtyard in the center of the manor. You find yourself longing for fresh air. Then this flips into Shroud of 5, no clues. Forced. After you enter the courtyard, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, draw it. What was first a wave of relief upon exiting the manor turns to dread. Dozens of yellow eyes stare at you from the building's rooftops, and shapes loom in the clouds above. Alright, we'll meet Sebastian Moreau, then we'll see about the encounter deck. As an action, Parlay. Test Will 3 to get information about the production from Sebastian. If you succeed, take control of one of the clues on Sebastian. Forced. When the last clue is removed from Sebastian, flip this card over and resolve its text. He's a visionary, but you wouldn't want to be in his visions. Indeed not. But we do need to see what the top card of the encounter deck is and hope to God it's not an enemy. So of course it is. Young Psychopath, 2/2/3. Humanoid Lunatic, Forced. After Young Psychopath engages you, you must either take 1 horror, or Young Psychopath gets +3 fight until the end of the investigation phase. Her eyes widened, and she picked up the knife. 1 and 1 on attack. Well, since it's basically the end of the investigation phase now, we'll give her the +3 fight, because I don't want to start taking extra horror right off the bat. That, unfortunately, will do it for Mandy, and that'll do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Mandy takes 1 and 1 from the Young Psychopath, so that kind of breaks the rule about there are usually no enemies in play on the first turn. So, I'll go ahead and reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Jacqueline gains 1 resource and goes to 8. Mandy gains 1 and goes to 2. Jacqueline draws Unspeakable Oath, Bloodthirst. Oh joy. Campaign mode, Peril Hidden. Revelation, secretly add this card to your hand. Forced. When the game ends or you're eliminated, if this card is in your hand, you gain 2 fewer experience. And when you deal damage to an enemy in excess of its remaining health, discard this card from your hand. Fantastic start. Mandy draws. Dream Diary, Dreams of an Explorer. 2 cost to play, will and agility on commit. When you're at a location with 4 or more, with at least 4 shroud, Essence of the Dream gains 2 wild icons. And as a fast action, when your turn begins, search your bonded cards for Essence of the Dream and add it to your hand. Right. Mythos phase, we got our first Doom on the agenda. Jacqueline draws. Tough Crowd. Revelation, put Tough Crowd into play next to the agenda deck. Each investigator must spend 1 additional action to parlay. Forced. At the end of the round, discard Tough Crowd. Fantastic. Mandy draws. Dance of the Yellow King. Revelation, if there are no lunatic enemies in play, Dance of the Yellow King gains Surge. Let me just see. We do have a lunatic in play, the Young Psychopath. Otherwise, test Will 3. If you fail, the nearest lunatic enemy readies, moves 1 location at a time until it reaches you, engages you, and makes an immediate attack. Mandy is up 1 on that. And I think that is where she will test. Remember, Mandy's up 1 because of the Hierophant 5, so this is her first will test of the round. A +1 means she's all clear of that. And that is unexhausted. Mandy will then exhaust Ancestral Knowledge to draw another skill. She will draw. Quick Thinking. If the skill test is successful by 2 or more, after it resolves, you may immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you take each turn. Alright, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase up next, and I think we need to send Jacqueline to help Mandy with the Young Psychopath, so let's move over to the map and pay a visit to Jacqueline. Action 1, actually we have some options here of how I want to do this. No, I think action 1, we are going to move over to the courtyard. Wait, after you enter the courtyard, discard the top card of the deck. Well, this might be fine. Let's see what we find here. We find another Tough Crowd, which means we get to discard that. I forgot Jacqueline's got a couple of Storm of Spirits, so that might not be a huge problem. But she's going to use 2 resources to play a Spectral Razor, adding her will value for the attack. And then immediately before the attack, she can engage the attacked enemy, and she's going to. So Friendly Fire doesn't hit Mandy. Deals +1 damage, +2 instead if the enemy is non-elite. Fortunately, it's non-elite, and that's going to become very relevant, assuming this works. Jacqueline's going to put her ability behind it. And do I want to have Mandy commit anything to it? Yes, I will, actually. I will have her commit Quick Thinking. So if the skill test is successful by 2 or more, after it resolves, she can immediately take an action as if it were her turn. But it doesn't count toward the number of actions she can take each turn. Alright, so with that, Jacqueline is up 5. Actually, Jacqueline's up 6, and I put her ability behind it. One, two, three. Right. First token for Jacqueline is a -2. Second token, a -1. And a skull, which is reveal another token. If you fail, place 1 doom on a lunatic enemy in play. So obviously we're not going to take the skull. We're going to cancel the skull and the -2. which means a lot's going to trigger here. So, the attack is successful, which means the young psychopath is defeated with only 2 health. Because we are actually dealing 3 with Spectral Razor. Jacqueline gets to discard Unspeakable Oath Bloodthirst. And then we succeeded by 5, so Mandy gets to take an immediate action. She will move down to the ballroom, and she'll pay a visit to Constance. And remember, that doesn't count against Mandy's actions for the turn. Action 3 for Jacqueline, so we're back to Jacqueline now. Jacqueline will draw a card for action 3. She will draw... Read the signs. 2 cost to play, will and lore on commit. Investigate plus will for the investigation. And you may ignore any effect or keyword on your location which would trigger during the investigation. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at your location. I'm kind of digging right now for Jacqueline's Arbiter of Fates. Mandy's turn. 2 actions. She's going to parlay with Constance. She's up 3 on that test, and I'm not going to commit anything to it. A +1 gets Mandy the last clue off of Constance. Then we'll take a look at the text on the back of Constance. Engram's Oath. It doesn't take long for the amiable hostess to open up to you about the play. Oh yes, my husband and I helped Sebastian produce the whole thing, she explains. I was a little hesitant at first, but that director, Mr. Nigel Engram, my, what a talented man. She laughs. He's so very eccentric. Did you know, before rehearsals even began, he had us recite some kind of... why, I suppose it was an oath of sorts. A formality, I guess. You know creative types and their silly rituals. But afterwards, we were filled with so much spirit. She smiles, zeal in her eyes. From that moment on, we had no hesitations. The King in Yellow would be the most successful performance in Arkham history. Remember that you interviewed Constance. Flip this card back over to its bystander asset side. So the way I'm going to mark that now is I'm going to mark it with I'm going to use another one of these icons, another one of these tokens to mark that I've interviewed Constance. And then since we performed a parlay action, Mandy gets 2 resources. She'll then Pathfinder up to the dining room, where we see we've got another of the guests up there, Ishimaru Haruko, who we'll meet in a minute. But first, let's look at the dining room. The rancid smell of rotten food wafts under the dining room door, and you barely avoid losing your lunch. This flips into Shroud of 2, no clues. As an action, heal 1 horror, then reveal a random token from the chaos bag. If a skull or tentacle symbol is revealed, take a horror and place a doom on the dining room. The sight of the guests scarfing down the awful feast, mouthful after mouthful, makes your stomach turn. Yeah, that kind of would make my stomach turn too, but let's meet Ishimaru Haruko, the costume designer. If you have 6 or more cards in hand, parlay, testing Will 2 to question Haruko about the play. If you succeed, take control of 1 of the clues on Ishimaru Haruko. Forced, after the last clue is removed from Ishimaru Haruko, flip this card over and resolve its text. My, what a bold choice of dress. Alright, since we need cards in that case, I think we're going to set ourselves up to get that. So I'm going to spend 1 resource for action 3 to play out Pantalone. After it enters play, draw 2 cards. When I initiate a non-lore test, I can discard this to use lore for this test instead of the skill indicated. I'll put that there. So Mandy will draw 2 cards. She will draw, first up, Eon Chart, level 4. 2 cost to play, lore, agility, question mark on commit. Uses 3 secrets. During my turn, exhaust Eon Chart and spend 1 secret. Choose and take 2 of the following actions in any order. Move, evade, or investigate. And Occult Lexicon, level 3. 2 cost to play, 2 lore on commit. Limit 1 per deck. When I play a copy of Bloodright, I can either change each 2 on it to a 3 or shuffle it into my deck instead of discarding it. Forced. After a Cult Lexicon enters play, search my bonded cards for 3 copies of it, add 1 to my hand, and shuffle the other 2 into my deck. Okay. Alright, that is all 3 of Mandy's actions. That will do it for her. That'll do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Jacqueline killed our only enemy in play. So we can go ahead and re-ready everything up here. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Jacqueline will gain 1 resource, go to 7. Mandy will gain 1 and go to 4. Jacqueline will draw. Another Spectral Razor. We used that to take out the young psychopath earlier. And then Mandy, 1, 2, 3, 4, will draw. Empirical Hypothesis. 2 cost to play, lore on commit. Customizable, use limit 1 per investigator. Forced. At the start of the round, choose one of the following criteria for the round. And we have a few more on this than just what's listed here. So I'll grab the sheet that I printed out for Mandy. You fail a test by 2 or more. You succeeded a test by 3 or more. You discard a treachery or enemy from play, or you enter a location with 3 or more shroud. When the chosen criteria is met, you may exhaust Empirical Hypothesis to add 1 evidence to it. And as a fast action, spend a resource to draw a card. Also, at the end of the turn, Tough Crowd goes away. Mythos phase, we put our second Doom on the agenda. Jacqueline will draw. Delusory Evils. Peril Hidden. Revelation, you must either secretly add Delusory Evils to your hand, or place 1 Doom on the current agenda and discard Delusory Evils. This effect may cause the current agenda to advance. Forced. When you would succeed at a skill test by 3 or more, you automatically fail instead. Discard Delusory Evils from your hand. I don't think... do I want to add this to her hand, or... If we put a Doom up, we'd advance now. I think we're going to add it to her hand and take a chance that we don't get any 3 or more tests. Mandy draws. Same thing as before, and she's going to, I think, take the same approach. Which technically would count as a card in hand for her, which actually kind of helps me out a bit. And then Mandy will exhaust Ancestral Knowledge to draw another skill from under it, so she will draw. Momentum. If the skill test is successful, reduce the difficulty of the next skill test you perform this phase by X, where X is the amount the skill test succeeded by to a maximum of 3. Okay. So that brings us into the investigation phase. And I think we're going to be spending most of our round at the map. Let's go pay a visit to Jacqueline first. Action 1 for Jacqueline, she's going to parlay. She's actually up 3 because of the Hierophant. So here's where I wouldn't mind a small negative. A 0, which automatically fails because of Delusory Evils, so I don't completely mind that. I just didn't want to have the agenda advancing on me. Action 2 will run that back. We'll stay up 3, I think. That's fine. Skull requires me to reveal another token. If I fail, I put a Doom on a Lunatic in play, except we have no Lunatics in play. That's a -2, so we do get one of the clues off of Sebastian. And then for action 3, Jacqueline will run it back, this time throwing her ability behind it. One, two, three. Token 1 is a +1. Token 2 is another +1. And token 3 is a -2. So we'll cancel -2 on one of the +1s to take another clue off of Sebastian. Then that will do it for Jacqueline. Mandy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, has 7 cards in hand. So she can actually talk with Ishimaru. That's a will test. She's up 2 for action 1. She's up 2 because of the Hierophant 5. -1 gets her a clue. Action 2, she's only up 1. Do I want to risk a commit? I don't think I do. Whoop. Okay. Would help if I had that +1 in the bag, so I'm going to run that first test back. I'm going to back up to that first test because I forgot that +1 was still out of the bag. So, action 1, Mandy's up 2. -1 still gets her the clue. Action 2, she's only up 1. A 0 gets her another clue. And then action 3, one more time, please. Skull requires me to reveal another token. A +1 gets me the last clue off Ishimaru. Which means we get to talk with Ishimaru. We didn't pass any of those tests by 3 or more. So, the pattern. In speaking with Miss Ishimaru, you discover that she designed all of the costumes worn in tonight's performance, save for one. That stranger character. Peculiar role, is it not? For whatever reason, Mr. Ingram would not allow me to change his outfit. Not one bit. And that mask, she scoffs. Did you know, one time I found that actor, I don't even know his name. I found him drawing a strange pattern behind the backdrop for the second act. You know the one, with the 2 suns. He gave me a terrible stare, and I dare say I jumped right off the stage and ran. You ask what the pattern looked like, and she finds a nearby napkin and begins to draw. Her recreation is much more detailed than you expected. Rings of concentric semicircles lined with strange runes, and at the center is a pair of wavy lines. You ask her what it means, and she shrugs. Haven't the slightest clue. Remember that you interviewed Haruko. Flip this card back over to its bystander asset side. So I'll grab another token to remind me that I've done that. And then since it is still Mandy's turn, I'm going to Pathfinder down to the courtyard, which means I have to discard the top card of the encounter deck, but I draw it if it's an enemy, so we find that it is, of course, an enemy. Alright, so 3-2, it's a Maggot Swarm, 3-2-3. Maggot Swarm's location gets +2 Shroud, so the courtyard's a 7 now. While it's at a location with no clues, it gains Hunter and makes friends with Mandy. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Mandy takes another horror from that. So we'll go ahead and reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Jacqueline gains 1 resource and goes to 8. Mandy gains 1 and goes to 5. Jacqueline will draw. Another enchanted bow, probably not that useful. Mandy will draw. You handle this one. 0 cost to play, lore, agility on commit. Fast, play after you draw a non-peril encounter card, but before resolving that card's effects. Choose another investigator. That investigator is considered to have drawn that encounter card instead. Gain 1 resource. Mythos phase, we are advancing the agenda. So let's see what we've got here. Guest of honor. If it isn't our final guest, the doorman announces. Miss Divine, your presence here has long been awaited. The woman wears a devilish dress and similar grin. You swear you've seen the symbol on her amulet before. Well, now the real party can begin, she declares, then heads off to mingle with the other partygoers. Find the bystander asset with the fewest clues on it, among bystander assets with at least 1 clue. Spawn the set-aside Diane Divine asset at that asset's location. Shuffle Shocking Display into the encounter deck, along with the encounter discard pile. Okay, let me find Diane Divine. We'll show what's going into the deck, or what's going out. Hiding an oath unspoken. Each investigator at Diane Divine's location cannot discover or take control of clues. Forced, at the beginning of the enemy phase, find the bystander asset with the fewest clues on it, among bystander assets with at least 1 clue. Move Diane Divine to that asset's location if able. And we spawned it at that asset's location. We're spawning it at the courtyard. Which means that 1 clue that's left on Sebastian is basically inaccessible. Now let's take a look at the terrifying truth. Or at the Agenda 2A. The terrifying truth. More and more, this place continues to fall into madness, transforming before your very eyes. Forced, when this agenda would advance by reaching its doom threshold, instead, remove all doom from play and randomly resolve 1 of the sickening reality cards underneath the scenario reference card. If there are no cards under the scenario reference card, advance to Agenda 2B instead. So I'm going to get Shocking Display, which I put right here. And the discard pile. And the agenda needs 3 doom to advance, by the way, so we're shuffling the discard pile and the new Sickening Reality card into the deck. Okay. Alright, Jacqueline draws. Delusory Evils. We just got rid of this. Actually, now I think we might go ahead and I think we're just going to go ahead and put a Doom up on the agenda. And then Mandy draws. A party guest. Find the bystander asset with the revelation. Find the bystander asset with the most clues on it and put party guest into play at that location. Investigators can't parlay with bystander assets at party guest's location. As an action, spend 2 resources to parlay. Move party guest to a connecting location. I think we'll put her in the living room. Okay, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Before we leave the Mythos phase, Mandy will exhaust Ancestral Knowledge to get a skill card from under it, so she will draw. The Eye of Truth, probably not that useful. 4 wild cards on commit. If the skill test is successful on a Treachery card, Add that treachery to the victory display with the Eye of Truth attached to it. While attached, the Eye of Truth contributes its skill icons to all tests on copies of the attached treachery. Okay, so now moving into the investigation phase, I think first thing Jacqueline needs to do is take care of this maggot swarm. We're starting Jacqueline's turn in her play area. Action 1, she's going to spend 2 resources for another Read the Signs. We'll engage the maggot swarm off of Mandy, and I'll put Jacqueline's ability behind this. So she's up 4. The up 4 is most of why I'm putting Jacqueline's ability behind it. We want to make sure this thing gets taken off. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Token 1 is the Elder Sign. We'll take a look at Jacqueline's Elder Sign in a second. Token 2 is a -1. And token 3 is a 0. So Jacqueline's Elder Sign is a +1. If this effect is canceled or ignored, draw 1 card. So we're going to cancel the Elder Sign and then -1, reveal the 0, which means the maggot swarm's defeated and Jacqueline gets to draw a card from ignoring her Elder Sign. So Jacqueline draws Shriveling level 5. 3 cost to play, will, 2 combat on commit. Uses 4 charges. As an action, spend a charge to fight using will instead of combat. +3 will and +2 damage for the attack, but if you pull a bad symbol, take 2 horror. Alright, then actions 2 and 3. Action 2 at least will take us over to the map. Action 2 will move Jacqueline over to the living room where the party guest is, and we see another guest here, but we'll take a look at him in a second. Cigarette smoke and the sounds of idle chatter drift out of the manor's living room. You feel warmth behind the door, and this flips into Shroud of 3, no clues. Reaction, after you perform a parlay action in the living room, draw 1 card. Group limit once per phase. How many fireplaces does this place have? A lot, apparently. And then Jordan Perry, Dignified Financier. If you have 10 or more resources, parlay. Test Lore 2 to fraternize with Jordan. If you succeed, take control of one of the clues on Jordan Perry. Forced, when the last clue is removed from Jordan Perry, flip this card over and resolve its text. Time is money, and Mr. Perry has all the time in the world. So since we need resources for Jordan, action 3 for Jacqueline will be to take a resource to bring her up to 7. And that will do it for Jacqueline's turn. Mandy, at the start of her turn, is going to Pathfinder. So we're going to exhaust Pathfinder and move up to the gallery, where we see the last of the main guests up there. So let's find out what we've got in the gallery. The sounds of conversation and warped music become muffled as you approach a lonely section of the manor. Leading to the door of the gallery is a long hall adorned with many expensive paintings, including one of Mrs. Dumaine herself. This flips into Shroud of 1, no clues. Forced, after you end your turn at the gallery, test Will 2. If you fail, place one of your clues on the gallery. Somehow, the guests in the display are still interested in the art on display, even though someone has vandalized all of the paintings and statues. It might be hard to avoid ending our turn at the gallery because the last guest here is Ashley Clark, talented entertainer. 2 actions to parlay, listen to Ashley perform, take control of one of the clues on Ashley Clark. Forced, when the last clue is removed from Ashley Clark, flip this card over and resolve its text. Her voice is beautiful and full of passion. If only you knew what the lyrics meant. Indeed. And we still, I think, have... Yep, we still have Delusory Evils in her hand. So I think for 2 actions, we will listen to her sing to take control of one of the clues off of Ashley. And then action 3, we'll move her down, we'll move Mandy down to the living room and join Jacqueline there. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we have no enemies in play currently. So we'll go ahead and reset everything there. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. I did gloss over that Diane technically is supposed to find the bystander asset with the fewest clues on it, but she's already still at the location with the fewest clues on it, so we're fine there. Coming back to our turns, Jacqueline gains 1 resource, goes to 8. Mandy gains 1 and goes to 6. Jacqueline draws. Arcane Studies, level 4. 2 cost to play, 2 will, 2 lore on commit. Uses 2 resources. Replenish these resources at the start of each round. As an action, spend a resource from your resource pool or from Arcane Studies. You get +1 will or +1 lore for this skill test. Just checking Jacqueline's hand size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're clear there. Mandy draws. I've got a plan. 3 cost to play, lore, combat, and commit. Fight using lore. Deal +1 damage for this attack for each clue you have. Max of +3 damage. Mythos phase. Doom on the agenda goes up to 2. Jacqueline draws. Young Psychopath. After it engages you, you either take a horror or Young Psychopath gets +3 fight until the end of the investigation phase. Her eyes widened and she picked up the knife. I think we're going to take a horror. Jacqueline is still at full strength. I wouldn't mind seeing Mandy draw an enemy here too. Mandy draws. A Maniac. 3, 4, 1. Forced. After it engages you, take 1 damage and deal 1 damage to Maniac. Get out. Get out. Get out of my head. Well, I suppose it's a case of ask and ye shall receive, but I think we can work with that. So Mandy takes a damage, and we do a damage back to the Maniac. Right. Okay, before we leave the Mythos phase, Mandy will exhaust Ancestral Knowledge to get her last skill. So Mandy will draw. Opportunist. Commit only to a skill test you're performing. If you succeed by 3 or more, return an Opportunist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it. Okay, actually, hang on, I should have checked her hand size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So Mandy has to discard 2 cards. I can't discard Delusory Evils, because that would be a voluntary discard. I think we'll discard Hiking Boots and Eon Chart. We'll do that. Okay, so into the investigation phase, Jacqueline is going to start doing a little bit of the zappy zappy. So we're going to move down to her play area. Action 1 for Jacqueline. We're going to spend 3 resources to play a Storm of Spirits. This is actually going to be very handy right now. We're going to aim at the Young Psychopath, since Jacqueline took a horror from that. We're also going to put her ability behind this, because I want to make sure this takes everything out. +2 will, which brings her up to 7 to 2. She's up 5, and I threw Jacqueline's ability behind this. Does Mandy want to commit anything to this? No. So Jacqueline is up 5 against the Young Psychopath, and we put her ability behind it. One, two, three. Right. First token up. An Elder thing, which is not going to be pretty. Second up. A -2 and A skull. So we'll cancel the skull and the elder thing. We have a -2 to reveal for the test, which means Jacqueline takes everything out because she did 3 damage to everything at the location. Let's see here. After you perform a parlay action in the living room, draw 1 card. We can move that to a connecting location. So we'll spend... So for action 2, Jacqueline will spend 2 resources. I don't actually think we care about moving... Actually, yeah, we will move the... We'll move the party guest away. We'll move the party guest to the foyer, since we've already cleaned that off the clues. And then since we performed a parlay action in the living room, Jacqueline will draw one. We'll draw a card, so she will draw... Dark Future. Oh, great. Revelation, put Dark Future into play in your threat area. You can cancel or ignore any symbols. Forced. At the end of your turn, reveal 5 random chaos tokens from the bag. If you pull an Elder Sign among them, discard Dark Future. Oh, joy. And then for action 3, I think we will draw another card. So Jacqueline will draw. Actually, yeah. So this is action 3. Jacqueline will draw a Crystal Pendulum, getting +1 will. After a skill test at your location begins as a reaction, exhaust Crystal Pendulum. Name a number. If the test succeeds or fails by that number, draw 1 card in the accessory slot. That's it for Jacqueline's turn, so now we need to reveal 5 tokens from the bag and hope we find an Elder Sign among them. One, two, three, four. Hey, look at that! Dark Future isn't going to cause us that many problems. Just for giggles. A skull. Okay, so we did find the Elder Sign, which means Dark Future is not going to cause us problems for long. More importantly, that will do it for Jacqueline. Let's move over. Let's move back over to Mandy. Jacqueline was also +1 on her Storm of Spirits test thanks to the Hierophant 5. Mandy will Pathfinder up to the gallery, where she'll immediately spend 2 actions listening to Ashley sing and take control of a clue off of the location. Unfortunately, we don't have another action to be able to to pull that last clue off. So I think we're just going to pull her back down to the living room for action 3. So that will do it for Mandy. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we'll leave Diane with Sebastian right now because he still has only 1 clue left, even though Ashley now has 1 as well. Otherwise, no enemies in play, so we'll reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Jacqueline gains 1 resource and goes to 4. Mandy gains 1 and goes to 7. Jacqueline will draw another Read the Signs. Probably not that useful. Let me just make sure hand size is not a problem. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. We're fine there. I think Mandy will have a problem with hand size, though. She will draw Occult Evidence. 0 cost to play. Lore on, or question mark on commit. Shuffle it into your deck. When you search your deck and Occult Evidence is among the searched cards, reveal it to draw it and discover a clue at your location. But I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She's got to discard another 2 cards. Let's bin Opportunist and Momentum, I guess. Mythos phase, we are advancing the agenda, but when we would... We remove all Doom from play and randomly resolve 1 of the Sickening Reality cards underneath the scenario card. So we have 8 down there from the return. So we'll grab the scenario cards up. Give these a shuffle. Then we'll pull this one. And here's our sickening reality. Constance laughs as the skin begins to slough off her body. Blood trickles from her shedding skin, leaving a trail of crimson on the carpet where she walks. One might expect her to cease functioning with her ribs and organs exposed, but she barely seems to notice. Each investigator at Constance Dumain's location, which is no one, takes one horror. Move each clue from Constance Dumain to her location, which we already got them all off her, so no problem there. Flip this card to its enemy side, and switch it with the bystander asset version of Constance Dumain, removing that version from the game, so now we get a new version of Constance. Constance Dumain, a little too sociable. 461 Hunter. When Constance Dumain is exhausted, she gets +3 fight. What's wrong? Aren't you enjoying yourself? Victory 0, 2 damage on attack. Yikes. Okay, so that's the new version of Constance that we have. I will have to remember that I interviewed Constance. Anyway, now we've got to draw on counter cards from the deck, so Jacqueline draws. Shocking display. Oh, fantastic. Revelation, randomly resolve one of the sickening reality cards under the scenario reference card. This can't be canceled. It does have victory 0, though, so at least it goes to the victory display, so we only have to deal with it once. This is fun. So we'll give these another shuffle. And a cut, and that's the one we'll take. All right. If there are no party guests in play, place this card back underneath the scenario reference card and randomly choose a new sickening reality card to resolve. Otherwise, read the following. A chorus of laughter erupts nearby as one of the guests dances to the bizarre music. You head over to discover what is so funny, but what you find is no laughing matter at all. The guest's dance partner lies sprawled on the floor, limp and bloodied, a gaping, gory hole in their chest. The guest turns to you with a disturbing look in their eye and a wicked grin spreading on their lips. Choose a party guest in play. We only have one. Each investigator at that party guest's location takes 1 damage. Place a doom on the current agenda. Flip this card to its enemy side and switch it with the chosen version of party guest, removing that version from the game. Okay, so we don't have anybody at the foyer to take a damage. We do put a doom on the agenda, which brings us back up to 1. And then we flip this to its enemy side, so we find 351, or 354, Humanoid Monster Lunatic, Hunter. As an action, parlay to test lore 4. If you succeed, you manage to get through to them for just a moment. Automatically evade crazed guest. If you fail, your words fall on deaf ears. Victory 0, damage on attack. So that replaces the one at the foyer. At least sickening display is gone, though, so that's something. Mandy draws. Fragile Thoughts. Revelation, discard events from your hand with a total printed resource cost of at least X, where X is the shroud value of your location. If no cards are discarded by this effect, Fragile Thoughts gains Surge. Let's see, events with a 3 cost. Unfortunately, that gets rid of I've Got a Plan, but that probably doesn't hurt us too terribly much. We can probably work with that, at least get that last clue off of Ashley, and we might honestly be on the Gitfo plan at this point. Just looking at how things are starting to go. But that will do it for the investigation phase, or for the mythos phase, I should say. We're into the investigation phase now, and the question is, do we have a path to 10 resources, or do we just take the last clue that we can get and start working on the Gitfo plan? Let's see, it would be 2 actions. I think this will work. I think we probably are going to have to take the... I think we probably are going to be on the Express Gitfo plan at this point. AKA Get Out. With the fewest clues, okay? Alright, so yeah, Mandy will declare start of turn and she'll pathfinder her way over to the map. Pathfinder will bring Mandy up to the gallery. She'll spend 2 actions to listen to Ashley perform again, getting the last clue off of the location. Then we'll flip Ashley's card over. Above and below, Ashley's song is beautiful and haunting, and you find yourself mesmerized by its melody. You don't know why the lyrics call to you, but for some reason, you cannot get them out of your head. Above the city, the storm clouds rage, and waves crash through the gilded cage. The skies open the path above to lost Carcosa. The path below the earth, the salt water seeps. The shadows fall as the red sun sleeps. The ocean opens the path below to dim Carcosa. Remember that you interviewed Ashley. Flip this card back over to its bystander asset side. All right, we'll get another marker for that. Assuming I don't throw it everywhere. And then action 3, Mandy will leave the gallery. That will do it for Mandy's turn. Jacqueline, knowing things are starting to go haywire here, I think we're going to set up for a little bit of self-defense. So Jacqueline will spend 3 resources to put Shriveling into play, which we saw earlier. I'll get the 4 charges out for that. There are 4 charges going on Shriveling. And I think we're going to keep Jacqueline in. I think we're going to have her gain 2 more resources for her last 2 actions. And that will do it for Jacqueline's turn. Enemy phase. Constance moves over to the courtyard. Crazed Guest moves over to the living room, and I'll have it engage Jacqueline. Jacqueline will take a damage from the Crazed Guest attacking. Yeah, I'm beginning to think the Gitvo plan looks really good right about now, but let's see what we can do with this. First, let's move back up top for the upkeep phase. Jacqueline gains 1 resource and goes to 4. Mandy gains 1 and goes to 8. Jacqueline draws. An Occult Theory, which we saw earlier. We might need that this turn. Mandy draws. A surprising find. Question mark on commit. Myriad. When it's as a reaction, when you search your deck and a surprising find is among the discovered cards, put it into play in your play area. You must commit it to the next eligible skill test you perform. If that skill test is successful, draw 1 card. Max 1 research ability per search. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 were all clear there. Mythos phase, second doom on the agenda. Jacqueline will draw. Another Maggot Swarm, which will probably... Well, I think I know what Jacqueline's doing this turn. Mandy draws. Delusory Evils. Peril Hidden. Revelation, you must either add it to your hand or place a doom on the current agenda and discard Delusory Evils. This effect may cause the current agenda to advance, yada yada yada. And I think we will place a doom and let it advance to get another one. Mainly because I have somewhat of a plan here. Even if that plan likely involves us saying toodles. But we'll see what happens here. Sickening Reality. A nearby guest asks Haruko if she designed the dress she is wearing, and she nods and poses for him. As if part of her effort to appear taller, her spine grows and extends upward, separating her torso from the bottom half of her body. Instead of crying out in pain, she smiles at the attention she receives. Each investigator at Ishimaru Haruko's location takes 1 horror. Move each clue from Ishimaru Haruko to her location, neither of which affect us. Flip this card to its enemy side and switch it with the bystander asset version of Ishimaru Haruko, removing that version from the game. Ishimaru Haruko, just skin and bones, 6'4", Hunter, Monster Lunatic Elite. Forced. After you deal damage to Ishimaru Haruko by an effect other than an attack, draw the top card of the encounter deck. Doesn't this dress look gorgeous on me? Victory 0, 1 and 1 on attack. Right. Okay, so... yeah, I think... let's see, can I set us up to get out... I can probably set us up to get out next turn. Pathfinder should be unexhausted. Actually, I could probably set us up to get out this turn. I'm thinking about this. Plays occult. Mandy plays occult lexicon. Yeah, I think we actually can get out this turn. And the way things are starting to go, I think not getting greedy is probably a better plan. So let's start the turn off with Mandy in her play area. Action 1, Mandy's going to spend 2 resources. Where is it? Ah, here we are. To play out her occult lexicon. So I'll go get the blood rights. Right. Those go there. Oh. That should be a 3. Mandy should still have 6 resources left. Alright, we'll take a look at blood right. 0 cost to play, will, lore, combat on commit. Bonded, of course, to occult lexicon. Draw 2 or 3 cards. Discard up to 2 or 3 cards from your hand. For each card thusly discarded, you either gain a resource or may spend a resource to deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Okay, and remember, we can take the... if we take it as a 2, we can shuffle it back into the deck. And we might only need the blood right as a... for what Jacqueline's got... for what I got planned for Jacqueline this round, I think we only need it as a 2, because I've got another Storm of Spirits in Jacqueline's hand waiting for those 2 enemies. The question is, do I want to get greedy with Constance bearing down on us, or do I want to just take the... or do I just want to take the experience I've got and get out of here? The better... well... there's definitely a temptation to try to get a little bit greedy, but... especially if I think there's a decent chance we can get the... especially if I think there's a decent chance we might be able to get some more of these clues. Well, at any rate, let's start with action 2 with the aforementioned blood right, and I'm going to use it as a... I'm going to use it as a... yeah, I think I'm going to stick to the original plan and use it as a 2. Let's see what happens here. So Mandy will draw another deduction level 2, which we saw earlier. Wait. Is this the... okay, this is the blood right we just played, and... Janae Beauregard, 5 cost to play, Intrepid Explorer. Lore, agility on commit, +1 of each. During your turn, after you move to a location, exhaust her. Move a card, a clue, or a non-elite enemy from a location to your... from a connecting location to your location, or vice versa. What do I want to discard? I can't discard Delusory Evils voluntarily. I will pitch the Eye of Truth and Surprising Find. And I'll spend 2 resources to do 2 damage to the Crazed Guest. I was more thinking about the possibility of, if we find another blood right, trying to maybe get a little bit greedy, but I think the better play is right now to just play it safe and get out of here. So next action, I'll exhaust Pathfinder, and we'll join Mandy over at the map once I get a new battery. Pathfinder will bring Mandy down to the foyer. And then action 3, she's going to resign. That was the original plan here. I didn't want to... I think getting cute with this is probably... I think getting cute and trying to get greedy is probably a very bad idea. So we're just going to plan on getting out of here this round. Jacqueline, however, has a little bit of work to do if she's going to try to get out of here. So she's going to spend 3 resources to play Storm of Spirits. Fight using will instead of combat, getting +2 will, and deals 3 damage to everything. She can target either one because they're both 3s, but she'll target the Maggot Swarm, I guess. She's up 4, and I'm going to put her special ability behind this because I want to make sure this hits so I can get out of here. I will commit. Let's commit. We don't have a Delusory Evils in Jacqueline's hand, so just to make sure this hits, let's commit Occult Theory. So that'll give her another 3 will, which will bring her up to 7, 8, 9, 10 to 3. She's up 7, and I threw Jacqueline's ability behind this. One, two, three. All right, first token for Jacqueline is the skull. Next up, the Elder Sign and a 0. So we'll cancel the skull and the Elder Sign, which means everything's going to get wiped out because Jacqueline did 3 damage with Storm of Spirits. And then Jacqueline will draw a card. She will draw Internal Injury, which doesn't really matter right now. Revelation, it goes into play in her threat area. At the end of her turn, she takes 1 direct damage and 2 actions to discard it. The reason it doesn't matter right now, though, is because action 2, she's going to move down to the foyer. And then action 3, she's going to resign as well. So that will bring us back up top for Scenario Resolution, which advances us to, I believe it advances us to if all investigators resigned. Alright, so we'll start off with a little bit of setup.
If no resolution was reached and at least 1 investigator resigned, go to Resolution 1. If no resolution was reached because each investigator was defeated, go to Resolution 2.
Both investigators resigned from the scenario, so that brings us to Resolution 1.
Resolution 1. The brisk autumn air embraces you as you exit the manor. There is no doubt in your mind that the cast and crew of the King in Yellow have become affected by madness. Perhaps it's getting to you as well. You feel an encroaching darkness, a presence in your mind not unlike the gaze of the stranger. Startled, you peer about the front yard for the first time since escaping the manor. The scene is different. The front windows are not smashed as they were when you first approached. The trail of blood you had noticed on the porch has been wiped clean, and instead of the disturbingly warped music you had heard upon entering, the soothing tunes of slow jazz drift on from the courtyard. In your campaign log, under VIPs interviewed, record the name of each character you interviewed. In your campaign log, under VIPs slain, record the name of each unique lunatic enemy in the victory display. Each investigator earns experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display. For every 2 clues that were on the act deck when the game ended, choose an investigator to earn 1 additional experience point. Experience from this reward must be divided as evenly among the investigators as possible. Proceed to Interlude 1, Lunacy's Reward.
Okay, so we had a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 clues. So each investigator gets 3 will get 3 experience from that. And we didn't have anything that gave us experience in the victory display, I don't think. No. Okay, so that brings us to our interlude of Reality's Shadow. Let me see if I can find it here. I think I've got a... wait. Reality's Shadow. Okay, hang on. Where... Did I not record that? I don't know how I wouldn't have recorded that. I'm looking here. Okay, I gotta pause this so I can look on my phone for the recordings, but otherwise we may be having story time with Live Phoenix Night. Okay, so I got a little bit confused. I was using the new campaign guide from the repackaged campaign guide to follow along, but I recorded these audio recordings from the original text where it had been called Lunacy's Reward, but I guess they eroded it to be called Reality's Shadow. So, Lunacy's Reward and Reality's Shadow are one and the same, but let's proceed. Let's begin.
Interlude 1, Lunacy's Reward. The investigators must decide. Choose one. Things seem to have calmed down. Perhaps we should go back and investigate further. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 1. I don't trust this place one bit. Let's black the door and get the hell out of here. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 2. If these people are allowed to live, these horrors will only repeat themselves. We have to put an end to this. We have to kill them. Proceed to Lunacy's Reward 3.
After seeing what we saw at the party, with at least 2 of them turning and figuring all of them are going to be like that, I'm in favor of let's get rid of them now and be done with it. So that'll bring us to Lunacy's Reward, aka Reality's Shadow 3.
Lunacy's Reward 3. You dare not risk stepping back inside that madhouse, but you can't let the monstrosities run amok either. You root through the open garage for a few supplies, finding an old hose, an empty gasoline canister, and some matches. Knowing what you must do, you first siphon some gas from Mrs. Dumane's Oakland 654A. You spread the gasoline across the front porch, inside the garage, and around the manor's outer walls. From there, all it takes is several matches to start the blaze. You watch from the front yard as the manor is eventually consumed by the flames. The sounds of crackling fire and snapping wood and the screeching of dying horrors fills the street. Satisfied, you head back to your vehicle and tear off towards Southside, full of grim determination. You did what had to be done, right? In your campaign log, record that you slayed the monsters at the dinner party. Mark 1 conviction in your campaign log. In your campaign log, under VIPs slain, record the names of all five VIPs, if not already recorded there. Constance Dumaine, Jordan Perry, Ishimaru Haruko, Sebastian Moreau, and Ashley Clark. Remove all cultist, rune, and elder thing tokens from the chaos bag. Then add 2 cultist tokens to the chaos bag. The story continues in scenario 3, Echoes of the Past.
And that scenario is where we're going to be headed next week. I was doing some of the setup stuff off camera, just so I had it all done and it was all taken care of. So that will do it for Return to the Last King. Again, we picked up 3 experience, and we set a fire to the Dumaine estate to keep the monsters at bay. So later this afternoon, I'm expecting we'll have the next round of upgrades. Then we'll probably have a couple unboxings as well of games I just picked up yesterday. Wednesday will see us move to Lost Carcosa for our first quarterfinal bout and the Greatest Boxer Tournament and Title Bout 2. Next week, we'll see the fall campaign move to the Historical Society as we return to the Echoes of the Past. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.